Uh, but so this is what he said. We as aimers need to stop assigning so much value to people based on scores alone. So much more should go into who we decide to listen to as community members, and what happened back with Shimmy was just one example where misplaced credibility led to misinformation spreading. Sure, scores hold some weight in attesting to your skill level, but if all you have is a few benchmark ranks and all of your contributions are score posting in the Voltaic score channel, how should you hold more credibility than people who do way more than that? And there are other examples where dishonesty by a player is just taken as good advice simply because they have a higher benchmark rank. This is going on even as I type this, and no, it's not just with players who are cheating, it's quite dangerous if you think about it. This obviously applies to me too. You shouldn't automatically trust my words simply because I have good scores. Evaluate my trustworthiness according to what I've contributed to the community and to how much I say actually aligns to what I do and how I play. Clips is so toxic when Apex. Yes, this is true also, Uzi. So this, like, I saw this in, why didn't I retweet this? Like, I'm just going to repost all of these. These are, like, so true. This is honestly one of the reasons, I'm not going to lie, that I stopped streaming, Kovacs so much, is a lot of the people that gave me advice was just like, don't get me wrong, they're better players than me, but the advice was just hollow and kind of BS. And all it did was just make me get in my own head a lot and just kind of dwiddle myself a lot for no good reason. It never really helped me. Nothing anybody has said really in my chat has ever really helped me. Bar like one or two sentences, almost nothing has helped me as a player to improve. Everything that has helped me personally improve is being a part of a good community and just chatting and having a good time and making it so I want to play more, and also just personal want to improve and learning what I should be focusing on and what, like, through outside resources, not through the community, like through the community, like kind of through Maddie and Viscos, but I also nitpick things that they say. I kind of steal things from them and kind of make my own adjustments based off of how I feel like I play and what works for me and what doesn't work. But so I felt like I didn't want to stream as much because I really just want to improve, and that's the main reason I play Kovacs, is to get better at aiming. And once again, I've also said this before, Kovacs is not the best for content. That's more so what Apex is for me. I might put this on the second channel just because Maddie called out Vincent's most hated member of RA calling out. I have no idea. No. He's basically just talking about how there's a bunch of people who have high scores, and in the community they get placed so high because they have high scores, and they don't necessarily know what they're talking about, and they end up hurting people in the long run. And they spread things that just don't help people, that hold people back. Things that are also just generally toxic in general. He doesn't quite say that, but that's part of the gist of his, I believe that's part of the gist of what he's saying. Shimmy was being a big example. There's a couple others that I could probably mention, but I won't, because it's just childish. You said Fitz though, yeah. But in general, like, it is really, really important that as a community, a lot of these things are, a lot of us put too many people on pedestals. Like, don't get me wrong, they're good players and they know what works for them, but the problem is they don't know how to make things not work for them and work for others. Because I'm gonna just say this right now, like, especially when you watch other players, how many of you think, oh, well, if they just do X and Y because I do X and Y, that would probably help them. But that's not quite when the person, whether or not you know it, that might not be what the person needs. I've done that a few times, don't get me wrong, and it's a bad habit, and that's something that I'm sure a lot of you have noticed I've tried to fix when I do talk in Kovacs chats a lot. I've tried to not do that as bad. I do it here and there a little bit. But in general, like, everybody kind of needs these different opinions, and just basically doing these blanket things, and then just because people have good scores saying that they know what they're talking about and how to help others improve is not quite true. They know how to help themselves, but they don't know how to help others. And like having a high score doesn't mean you are knowledgeable on how your actual, like, on how the actual aiming skill works, you know? Like, honest to God, like, especially GM to Nova, probably up to Nova. It's a little bit harder to that point, but up to Nova, you can probably just grind and get it. Honest to God, you can just grind and you can like force it, and you can get good. You can get good. Don't get me wrong, it's possible. I've seen it before. I've seen a couple people get close to Nova just from pure raw grinding and nothing else. It's not unheard of. It makes sense because at the end of the day, kind of just working on like, you know, aiming in general will help. It's like a building a muscle, and it's not the same. It's not quite the same because there's a lot of mental that should go into it too, but you can just kind of brute force your way through. There will be a lot of big hurdles, but yeah. But this is like a big reason why I stopped doing it. I kept getting a lot of misinformation. A lot of people telling me to do X, Y, Z, and honestly, it hurt my growth a lot as a player and as a just namer in general. And it kind of like, now don't get me wrong, a lot of it I took with the thought of, well, what would happen if I tried X? But a lot of the time, X was also just, a lot of people put blanket statements in what they say. So like a big example is, I'm not going to name anything. I'm not going to say anybody who said anything. If you know, whatever. But a lot of the times when I go into chats and I see people trying to give advice, especially to newer players, and even to me, I've gotten it a few times, they just say things like, wait, hold on, let me pull out Epic Pen just because I want to. Let me pull out the Epic Pen. Let me pull it out. Let me pull out the fancy tool. The fancy fun tool. Let me pull out the tool. Hold on. You ready? Just slow down. Wait, why don't you see it? Did I forget to click the button? I did. They say this. How many times have you guys seen this in a Kovacs chat? Just slow down. Go faster. What does that mean? What does this mean? Nothing. This is a blank statement that doesn't tell you what is wrong. How are you slowing down? How are you supposed to speed up? This isn't anything like, there is nothing in this that is like, what's the correct way to say it? It's not substantial, kind of, but there's no like substance to it. There's no substance. That's what it is. Sorry. There's no substance behind these words. These words are just blank statements that don't tell you what you need to truly do and what is currently wrong with what is happening. What do you need as a player? Yo, what's up, Bloom? Gooning, what's up, Sakito? What's up, Vincent? Gooning helps you aim because it strengthens your wrists and gives you extra grip on your mouse fingers and better tension management. This is truly what we needed to test testosterone mafia gooning. True. That fucking suck. That's what. True, man. Can we ban mods? Maybe we can make a poll on that. We could make a poll, Sakito. We can make a poll. I think a poll would work great for that. But like literally, these are those things I just literally just slow down and just go faster. How many times have you guys seen? Ignore the bad handwriting. I'm an aimer, not a artist. How many times have you guys seen this? Like genuinely, how many times have you guys seen this? These two, here, let me put a line between them so you can separate them. How many times have you seen this in chats? Especially in the newer players' chats. What does this mean to them? What is happening? We're having a slight rant. We're going over a couple topics in the aim training community that's been going on for a bit. After poll, you will give me money? Thinking of timing you out for a week, not gonna lie. What's up, Weak Burger? What's up, Whales? How y'all doing? You have never, because that doesn't make sense. I've seen it. It's even happened in my chat. I deadass kid you not. I've had people come in here and just say this. I'm not saying anybody of who has or hasn't said things like this, but they have straight said this. They said this, you're going too fast, you're going too slow, and that's it. I've seen that in a lot of other chats. It is honestly, now don't get me wrong, it's people trying to help, which is fine. There's nothing wrong. If you said smooth, yeah, that's also another one. Just be smoother. Just be smoother. Like, what does these words mean to somebody? Being told to slow down helped you a lot, to be honest. But did you get told how to slow down? Is a difference. The big thing is like a lot of these, especially the newer players. Nope, that's crazy. I mean, fair enough. But especially to newer players, this doesn't tell them what they really need to be doing. Like, is their corrections bad? Is their micros bad? Is their flicks bad? What about them is bad? Or their line, like, what is going on in their actual movements? It doesn't tell you anything. For most people, they're not going to understand it. For maybe for people that are up there in higher echelons, yes, maybe that could help. But at the end of the day, does this, for a new player, how does this doesn't make a lot of sense. It really doesn't. And this is about a lot of kind of, I think what he's talking about is just this, like, a lot of big, good players. They're good players, and I'm not going to discredit their scores and anything like that. They'll say stuff like this without any substance behind it, not telling you anything, and then it doesn't help you at the end of the day. If anything, for a lot of people, especially me, I've seen a lot of people get frustrated. A lot of people get frustrated at that sort of stuff. I've seen it a lot. You can see how it could cause issue for newer players. Yeah. For like a new player, this doesn't make sense. Even for me, this doesn't make sense half the time. I have to, when somebody said this to me, this a few times people have said it to me before I stopped streaming it. How about you VOD review my 23 wide wall 3 targets? It took you 3 weeks to PB it. True. True. Hit the bot. What's up, Shu? Just tell yourself sentences and it works. Yeah. Like, even for me, when I got this advice, I had to break it down myself. Like, okay, just go slower. Just slow down. Okay, so what am I probably doing too fast that this person is seeing? I was thinking about it. Well, are my corrections good, straight enough? Like, my micros, are they too erratic for me to see what's going on? But you see, I had to make through all these thought processes in my own head and figure out what worked for me on that note. A lot of newer players aren't going to get that. They aren't going to understand how to do that themselves, which is the problem with a lot of advice like this, which I'm pretty sure is what he's talking about. But yeah, I saw this tweet. I've been reading my Twitter, and it's been honestly kind of neat to read a lot of this the past couple of weeks. It's been pretty funny and pretty interesting to read. No way, Kovac. Yes, sir, Joker. Kovac's today. They give that advice, don't know how to explain it properly, or don't know how to explain it at all, that it becomes harmful advice. Yes, that is that's the issue. That is what he's addressing. That's mostly what he's addressing. It's that they are giving advice, but they don't know how to give the advice properly is the big thing. And it genuinely hurts a lot of players in the end. And also for a lot of people like me, it like just makes me not want to play the game in front of people. It makes me rather just like, don't get me wrong, I love getting advice, especially when I'm asking for it. But at the end of the day, especially when it's advice like this, it just tilts me. And it makes me like just stop wanting to interact with people about it. Like, I have genuinely improved so much in the past few weeks, in like past couple months, solely because I stopped listening to people. I started thinking about what I was doing, what I needed to focus on for myself, and what that entailed as a player, and stopped the hell is copy pasta. You don't even know the lore behind that. But I stopped listening to a bunch of people, and I knew what I needed to do for myself. I figured that out, and I've been improving way quicker than I was before. Way quicker. I was at a brick wall. I mean, I'm sure y'all have seen a lot of the scores I've been posting. I don't like a lot of the scores. I don't even like myself, but I'm sure y'all have been seeing a lot of it. It's because I've been meticulously focusing on issues that I've noticed with myself, that I understand. I know what's going on, what's wrong with me in particular. And that's what I've been working on, not this blanket advice that doesn't tell me what's wrong with me. You feel like the slowdown advice only helped you because you already had a pretty good understanding of the Sen, but it made it a lot easier. Yes, exactly. You already knew what is going on in the situation, and you were able to probably break down what going slower meant. Like, why would going slower help you? You already probably had a good idea of what was going on, and like I said, how, like, I don't know what scenario you're referring to, but in general, yes, this is a big thing, is that if you already understand the basis of it, it can help. It can help if you already understand how to kind of work through your way of what is actually wrong with your speed. It was for reactive, yeah. My guess is that you're probably like, when they said it to you, you were probably overcorrecting a lot or something. Probably something random like that. Usually that's what happens a lot. I don't know for sure, but it was probably that you're overcorrecting really far. And that's why slow down helped. Also depends on the kind of reactive. Some reactives are different than others. Some you need to be more snappy, some you don't. But in the general sense of things, that was probably a lot of what it was. Or that you were kind of spazzing around a lot. I don't know the exact issues, but you get the idea. You already had an idea of what might have been wrong, and hearing it probably just helped you think about it a little harder, which is different. People need to have critical thinking overall. Yes, this is true. However, how can you can't expect somebody that doesn't know. It's like, okay, if you took somebody first week of, say, learning to become a mechanic, and I don't know a lot of mechanic things, but basically you told them that they needed to do X, Y, Z, A, B, C, like all these complicated steps, and you tell them they need to do that. Do you think that's going to help them think through it? Do you think they're going to understand what's going on? Or do you think they're going to get overwhelmed and frustrated? More than likely, they're going to get overwhelmed and frustrated. You have to help people build those habits. That is not something that you just come with innately. Don't get me wrong. There's a couple people that I feel like that are really inclined at that, but that's not very common. Usually they have something pre-existing that helps them with that. Like some prior experience in somewhere. People don't understand the shit. Yeah. That Zuford post, that comment post is great. Sounds like too much thinking. Wouldn't building muscle memory and having fun be better? Did you think about these changes and then implement them? Okay. So muscle memory isn't like a huge thing. It is a thing, actually. Okay. This is a weird topic. There's a thing of muscle memory and there isn't at the same time. When you are trying to play a game, for example, say you're playing Apex or something, it's not mostly muscle memory. Don't get me wrong. Muscle memory isn't a real full-on thing. But at the same time, it is there too. It is actually there. That's part of why you aim train if you're playing for other games, is that you don't have time to think about a lot of these small things in detail about, oh, well, I should tense my wrist in this exact moment to get this amount of torque so I can, you don't think things like that. That takes too much other important things away from the game, such as your game sense, such as like other mechanics of the game that the game may have. And so yes, there is a bit of muscle memory you are building, but when you're aim training, think of it like this. Do you go to a gym? Maybe gym's not a good experience. Kind of. Do you just go to the gym and pick up the exact same weights every time because it feels the exact same way? No thought process and just lift it? I mean, I guess your gains might be slow, but is that really helping you? When you could be doing, say, a different exercise that pinpoints something else that you could think about because, hey, maybe this will help this muscle, which might make, like, you know, that's kind of the gist of a lot of it. That's kind of the gist of a lot of aim training. It's a lot of mental managing for figuring out what the weakness is, figuring out that weakness, focusing on it, practicing that in the aim trainer, because solely all you need to think about is that aim training capability and all those weaknesses and all those strengths that you have and how to blend them together well. And then that way, when you do go to play an actual game, you already have a lot of that skill blended up, pretty much refined correctly. Think of aim trainers as more of like how if you say you're a pro player, right, in a game, you know how you VOD review to figure out what the correct macro and micro decisions are a lot of the time? That way you don't have to think as hard. Don't get me wrong, you're still thinking a lot in the game, but that way you don't have to think quite as hard about certain decisions and it's a lot more natural to you. That's more of what like aim training is. It's more like that sort of idea. Can't focus because of fraudage. That's why you can't hit Nova. Yeah, true. He's so real. That's more of what aim training is like. It's that third kind of, like, it's that other portion of focusing on it so you don't have to think about it as hard in game if you're playing it for in game. If you're playing it solely for aim trainers, that's fine. You will usually just be focusing on it a lot at that point because there's nothing else that you need to focus on other than how to aim at the target and what weaknesses and strengths are lying around and what needs to be fixed on and what needs to be improved upon. How to make a three-pointer, just shoot the ball, bro. True. Think people just need to experiment more? No, I agree. People do need to experiment. And sometimes that can be helpful. But just giving blanket advice on how on what it is going on doesn't help them figure out what they need to experiment with if they don't understand what's going on in the first place. You know? It's like just telling somebody who's never played golf before to just use this club. They don't learn why they're using the club. You just told them to use a club, you know? What does that really help them? That doesn't help them be a better golfer. That just tells them to use a club or an iron or something, you know? That's the... You're basically training your hand control instead of building muscle memory. It's kind of weird because it's the same thing, but it's kind of not. Yes, that is true. It is kind of the same thing, kind of not. Because like I said, you are still in games. You should still be thinking about it somewhat. There should be a slight thought behind your head on what you should be aiming at, but it shouldn't be your like frontal focus most of the time in real games. Just because it's not what you're trying to do. But yeah. I don't know. I just saw all this on Twitter the last few days, and I was like, kind of thinking about it a lot. I was like, this is very interesting. This is definitely something I have experienced a lot, and like I said, it's something that one of the reasons I don't stream it is because Kovacs is because honestly, it kills a lot of the joy for Kovacs for me, because I like the self-improvement aspect of it, and honestly, I stream it mostly so I can chat with y'all. Y'all are cool people, and I love y'all. But at the end of the day, when you get advice like that all the time, it starts getting really annoying. There's nothing wrong with giving people advice when they ask for it. There's nothing wrong with giving people advice in general, but your advice should have substance behind it. I feel like blanket advice is 9 times out of 10 gonna just upset somebody. Muscle memory is true. You'll be dog shit once you switch sense. That is a weird topic for another time. Maybe you should try having a more static pacing. Maddie always preaches static pacing on dynamic clicking. So that was actually something I tried. I didn't go over it very well. I kind of went briefly over it. That was something I had tried before. I've tried it many times, especially because a lot of people have told me to do that. A lot of people have told me to do similar things to that. The problem was, and what I noticed myself too, is that just being a static pacing doesn't fix the issues that I did have. Which is part of what his post was talking about, and why he said even his should kind of, basically what he was even saying is that his advice should be taken with a grain of salt. Everybody's different, and especially in how they perceive things, and their issues may come from some sort of perception thing. Something that helped me a lot, and was the main, like I said, the main issue I was having, I usually have, is that I kind of start getting lazy almost. I'm not sure the exact thing, but it's kind of like lazy. And either I hard focus the bot, I hard focus the crosshair, and I kind of forget where the other one is in relation and what's going on. And so that was a big issue I was having. Most of my dynamic is why it felt so hard to play dynamic, why it's been feeling so hard to play it, is that, like, say I'd focus on my crosshair, I don't know what the bot is doing at all, and now all of a sudden I'm basically aiming at the Aether, hoping it hits. And then vice versa. I would focus on the bot a lot, but then I don't know where my crosshair is. Where am I supposed to micro past that? Where am I supposed to flick past that? You know? And so something I did was I played that micro playlist and I focused on that heavily. Like, I thought about it a lot. I was like, okay, do your best not to try to focus on either one too hard, because what I needed was to look at both and then try to figure out so I'd see where my crosshair is. I'd try to figure out where it is in relation to the bot, what's going on, mostly after I flick, but also before I flick as well. I do it both times. And then I'd also figure out what the bot is doing, if the bot is doing something. What direction is it moving, if it's moving somewhere? How much am I going to need to adjust afterwards, if that's the case too? And that's kind of the part I was missing. It didn't have to do so much with my pacing, as much as it had to do with that. Like, my actual confirmation was lacking. And so I had tried the static pacing stuff, and it didn't help because it didn't actually help the issue I actually had. Changing my pacing wasn't my issue, isn't my main issue. My main issue still is confirmation for the most part, in a certain specific manner. It's a little bit more in depth than that, but that's like the basis blanket cover of what the issue is that you'll hear me talk about a lot. Like I said, that's why you'll see me stop microing sometimes, is because I kind of like, usually when I stop microing, I'm focusing really heavily on the bot, and vice versa. If I micro kind of randomly, you'll see it's usually I'm focusing on my crosshair too much for like what I'm trying to do. and it ends up not helping me a lot. So playing that micro playlist and also getting more confidence with my micros for that same reason helped me a lot, and getting more confidence with my flicks helped me a lot, and it's even helped me in my tracking a lot, actually. I'm sure you guys have seen some of my ground scores that have been popping up a little bit, that I've been posting a little bit of, and other things. But yeah, that was part of the issue of just, and I'm glad you phrased it like a question. You phrased it as a question too. Like you were just curious, you wanted to know. You didn't just say, "Oh, you should be doing this," which is what a lot of people have done in the past. I don't want you to feel bad for saying that or anything, because it was a good question and I like it. And the way you said it was great. But a lot of people have said it more as a blank statement without any reasoning behind it, really, without any thought on what's actually happening, because people are different and you have to experiment things and figure out what the person is doing, what's going on, and certain things may or may not help for that reason alone. Of course, it was mostly curiosity, yeah, which is good. Curiosity is good. Asking questions is always good. Like trying to understand what's going on is always good. But that's also like in what he was saying. That's why a lot of advice can be bad, even if it's from a good player, is because they might say something like that, but what does that really mean to the player? Does that actually improve what they're having issues with and what they're strong with, or does it mostly just say something that just kind of was almost, like I said, yours is different. You were asking a question, but people state it as a statement and act kind of ego with it. Something that was worth a try if you never tried it. Yep, very true. Very, very true. It is worth a try. So it's always fine to try things that come out, but you have to be able to, especially with somebody, you have to be able to discern it is the thing too, though, which is what makes it difficult, especially for newer people, is you have to be able to discern why it may or may not work for you and why it may or may not help. I think Maddie's even said that in his own streams, actually. In general, that is a very, very important skill to learn, and it's something that should be developed a lot more regularly, rather than just telling people these are the fundamentals and why you should be doing this, that. Is learning what real analytical skills are and how to actually help yourself improve, and figuring out what your problems are is way more important. Because that also helps a lot in real games too. Because a big thing I notice a lot in real games is people don't understand why they die. They blame it on stupid shit. I do too. Don't get me wrong, I blame my death on stupid shit. But I know what I did wrong half the time, and I think about it. Even if I'm fucking raging like a mad lad. Even if I'm raging like a madman and you'll hear it come out of me, I am thinking very heavily on what I did wrong too, a lot of the time. Because I've learned that skill over the years of how to analyze and figure out what is actually truly happening and why it went wrong. What I could have maybe done to make it better. Not what would have made it better, but what I could have done to try differently, what might have worked. And that way, next time I get in a similar spot, I can try that. And if it doesn't work, it's back to the drawing board, you know? And that's how you truly improve. You don't just improve because somebody told you to do X, Y, Z. You need a reason. You need to understand what's happening behind the scenes. Why are you doing this? Does it make sense to you? Yes? Okay, then do it. Does it not make sense to you? No, you don't know what's happening. You're basically just doing something at random. And if somebody knows what you're doing, they're going to punish you for it. Like, actually, a good example is fighting games, you know? Doing a certain move might be really good a lot of the time, but do you know why it's good? No. Well, if you don't, you might just randomly use said move, and the better player that understands what's happening might just punish the crap out of you for it. That happens a lot in fighting games. That's actually one of the main skill gaps in fighting games, is understanding why it was bad to do that there. So, yeah. I don't know. But questions are good. You're more than all of you are more welcome to do stuff like that. I do like that, and I like talking about it. That and reading, yes. Yes. Well, reading helps with analytical skills and vice versa. They're not one-to-one, don't get me wrong, but both of them help each other out. If you're talking about that kind of reading, I'm not sure if you're talking about reading as in understanding the other player, or if you're talking about reading as in, like, you know, touching up, basically like studying, reading. Both are good, but both are important for both things for different reasons, but they all kind of intermingle with each other a lot. Anyways, more TED Talk rants.